This time of year, we tend to look forward and start thinking about what, if anything, we want different next year. Maybe nothing, but maybe something, maybe lots of somethings. We each get to decide for ourselves. And so, of course, our title today is Release.
You know, we've often said that change is the only constant. And I thought I was going to say, well, and you know that's not going to change. Well, that's kind of counterintuitive. How we're going to say that may change drastically. But I think we're going to keep saying it. Holding on is contrary to progress. That's what we say, let go and let God. We let go of those things that are holding us back and those things that are keeping us where we are. And we let God, the realm of infinite possibilities, lead us into things that we may not even be aware of. And move in another direction, always moving forward. Stagnation and standing still is not natural. Whether you're releasing what no longer serves you or releasing your word into universal law in an intention to accept newness, there is forward motion always involved in life. Life is a constant spiraling upward, progressing, expanding, and growing. I like the saying, don't look backwards, you're not going that way. I also like the idea of treat and move your feet. Keep moving, keep going forward, keep expanding, keep expressing. Thomas Troward said, and I believe this is my favorite Thomas Troward quote, "My mind is a center of divine operation. The divine operation is always for expansion and fuller expression. And this means the production of something beyond what has gone before, something entirely new, not included in past experiences, though proceeding out of it. In my own special world, of which I am the center, it moves forward to produce new conditions, always in advance of any that have gone before." I love that quote. In my own special world, of which I am the center, I am a center of divine operation. That's a powerful statement. I am a center of divine operation. Each one of us is a center of divine operation. So will you claim that with me? I am a center of divine operation. And you feel the magnitude in claiming that statement. Ernest Holmes says, "Let us remember that each day is a fresh beginning. Every day the world made new. It makes no difference how unhappy or fearful we may have been in the past. Today we may start life afresh." And I think Holmes would agree with me that not only every day is a new beginning, every now moment is a new beginning. Because every now moment I am initiating an entirely new sequence of events. I'm bringing about entirely new circumstances, and I'm bringing about an entire new phase of life, examining new possibilities all the time. And every time I have a new thought, I have a new projection, a new motion in another direction. I don't know if you were familiar with this, but last week was the beginning of the winter solstice. It started last week. The solstice symbolizes rebirth and the turn towards more light as the earth begins to move closer to the sun. Actually, the earth is always in the light of the sun, but not always is the earth facing completely, all of the earth, into the light of the sun. We do the same thing. We don't always face the divine light, but the divine light is always completely around us at all times. Emerson says, "Most of the shadows of this life are caused by our standing in our own sunshine." I don't know about you, but I know that I am often the greatest obstacle between me and my greatest good. And if I can just get out of my bloated nothingness and get out of the way, things seem to progress much more easily and effortlessly. Holmes says, "At all times we are either drawing things to us or pushing them away. This is the same as accepting and releasing in life." By releasing, we set the law of circulation into motion. What and how are you releasing? Remember, you're setting the law of circulation into motion so that whatever you put into the universe will bounce back to you. So, what are you releasing? Do you realize that releasing can cause good and bad karma? Are you happy to let go, or are you forcing things away? Releasing is just letting go, releasing your claim to it. In the process of consciously releasing, you may be inadvertently projecting energy. And that energy has to do with the intention behind the action of release. There is a great power in emotion. And emotion is a critical part of the creative process. Emotions provide the feeling that attaches to the thought and brings it to the level of manifestation. Are you releasing energy that empowers and permits conditions to persist? Or are you sending frustration, angry power as you push things away? Because they will come back to you. I think that releasing isn't always necessarily separating from or denial of conditions. It is often just moving on. It's just sometimes stepping away. All we have to do is just walk in another direction. We have to let the old fall away so that we can fit into the mold of the new that we wish to experience. So practice this. In releasing negative energy, always turn negative conditions around, giving them energy that reverses them into positive experience. Say things or claim things like this. I'm too blessed to be stressed. I'm too grateful to be hateful. I'm too light to fight. I'm too inspired to be tired. I'm too complete to compete. I'm too elated to feel deflated. I think I really need a rhyming antonym dictionary to be able to claim all those things that I truly wish to experience in my life.
We have a lot of dictionaries at home.
You
That
do.
one might work. So I like those. I like affirmations, and I love that David put humor behind them. I have found myself looking at the idea of release a little bit differently than I usually do. I quite often, and maybe you do too, look for what I'm going to change, what I want different in my life. And then I look to that, but what I'm doing when I do that is looking at that which I don't want. And so as I read a lot this week. I read everything I could get my hands on from Ernest Holmes, and we have a lot of books about release and words that I see that go with that idea. And freedom was one of the biggest words. So do you realize that he does not even have release in his index or in his glossary? He doesn't have that word in there. But what he does have is a whole lot of the quality that God is. And so I found myself thinking that what I needed to do or wanted to do or am on a path and a journey to work with is to see myself more as God. And I thought I want to share that with everyone because that really is what we're about, is looking at how we can become more godly, how we can experience the experiences that we want to have while living in that spirit of God. So for me, rather than letting go of something, I've considered the idea of seeing God within more clearly and more fully. And I think that this doesn't leave a space of lack for anything. There's no room left for lack or limitations or anything that's of the negative when the entire focus is on seeing God and knowing yourself as that. There is nothing to let go of, only something to embrace more fully in our consciousness. And that something is the unity of all life. Being one with all that is, everything we could ever want is already here. Our recognition of this fact transforms the way that we approach our own personal thinking. Since we are dealing with a mental science in science of mind, our mental attitude or the trends of our mental thought become the mental atmosphere in which we express our thought into the law. Now, I would say that what Kathy was talking about with vibration is this mental energy, and all of life is a mental energy. Life is consciousness. Why, in the words of our founder, would we take fragments when the whole is here for the asking? And I'm going to change his last word a little bit. Why would we take fragments when the whole is here for the taking? And it's not a selfish taking. It's an understanding of the abundance of the universe, so that our taking does not deplete anything. And our taking is not a greedy or a selfish or a stingy idea. Our taking is the natural ebb and flow of life. And why not go a step further? Why would we take fragments when the whole is here for the knowing? Simply knowing, I am all the good. I am the peace. And you know, I want to piggyback a little bit on what Kathy was talking about the peacefulness within. Because I think that it can look different to different people. And so for some of us, that peace that we all desire can look like sitting in meditation, being complete in mindfulness. And for some of us, that peace exhibits itself in joyful, rambunctious, energetic ways of life, because God is all that is. And I would suggest that for each one of us, that calm, that peace, is about the way we live our daily life. Whether we show up more meditative or whether we show up with what appears to be a high energy, it's how we live our life with loving kindness. A mental equivalent means having a subjective idea of the desired experience. We use that word subjective a lot in science of mind. And what we mean by it, the subjective idea is the unconscious. It is the belief systems underlying within us that are creative. And we can know what they are by what we see around us. And so if we desire to have anything be different for us in life, we go into that great within, into that subjective space, the unconscious, and we mentally create an equivalent within our own belief systems. We create a mental image which is greater than our present concept, so we experience the fulfillment of our desire. Release in our teaching means freedom freedom from limitation through spiritual understanding. So our studies and our daily lives want to include a growing of our spiritual understanding of ourself, of the God within us, and how it's creating in our life. I don't know about you, but I can think of several people in my life that they've totally transformed their entire life. They still are their same natural, awesome self, but their lives have completely changed. And I believe it is due to 100% looking within and determining, I am that. I am that goodness. I am the freedom of life. I am the peace and the joy and the love that life is. And I live with this as a top priority. It means seeing it in all areas of our life, both those that appear large and those that appear to be small. So I recently had a very interesting experience, and I wasn't seeing all the good in this experience. We were at our children's citrus groves and market, and we went early, and everybody had jobs, and everyone was scurrying around doing their jobs and so happy, and everything was so wonderful there. My job was going to be to roast the pecans. Well, I was so excited when I got this job because I thought, oh, I had seen the pecans. I hadn't sampled them yet, but I thought, well, I will sample them. And I'll sample the ones that I made. But then I realized, looking around, I'm all alone. Everyone's got their own jobs. They're doing their own thing. What if I make a mistake? That was my shortcoming, because it deteriorated from there. I began getting nervous. I gathered all my supplies, still looking around to see if anybody was going to come help me and make sure I was doing it right. They have a specialty nut roasting machine, and I had all the ingredients. But I not only double-checked to see that I was using a teaspoon instead of a tablespoon when the directions said that, triple-checked. I quadruple-checked. I looked around again to see if anyone was going to come and make sure I was doing everything just so. Wow. I had not yet realized what I was doing to myself. But I continued on, and I got it into the pan, and then you had to wait. Now that was torture for me, I've got to tell you. I was so nervous, and it started steaming, and I started smelling it. And it gave me the time with which I made a change, and then another time, blank, but I couldn't resist. I just had to peek. So I peeked in, and they were all wet. So I reread the directions, and it said that they would turn to the dry look that the roasted pecans are supposed to have. Okay, well, I waited a little bit longer, and then I went over to the manager and I said, did you want to check this for me and just see if I'm doing it right? And she went, oh no, you've got it. You've got the recipe, all the ingredients. You're all set. You'll do great. Well, she had more confidence in me than I had in me. So I went back and I just started breathing. And I waited for the right time. And when I opened it, sure enough, the nuts were perfect. All the worry and the tension that I had created inside myself was for nothing, and yet it had an effect on me. It didn't have an effect on anything else. The nuts knew just what to do. The recipe was right there and could be trusted. The only one having problems was me. Everything around me was in perfect order, except my thinking about it. And I know I'm not alone. You might be thinking right now of something you've done that with or do that with, or maybe even right now are doing it and you're going, aha, I'm going to awaken. Because when we create within ourselves a mental equivalent of being in the process of life because we are that life, and letting the process work by simply seeing that mental equivalent, in this case of perfectly roasted pecans, they do manifest. And sometimes they manifest even when everyone around you knows they are and you didn't. But you learn a valuable lesson. Now, they haven't asked me to roast pecans again, but I'm hoping that they're going to. When we're talking about pecans, and a simple story like this, it may seem as significant as it may not seem as significant as other experiences that we have. However, the process is the same. It's about realizing our freedom from any and all limitations and realizing that it begins with our deepening spiritual understanding. It's a living God, and that living God is called you, and it's working as you work it. A powerful internal shift takes place as we consciously accept the unity and goodness of life within us. We know that we come here because we believe in the art and the science of mind. Declaring this truth and mentally trusting outcomes permits problems to detach and fall away naturally without any effort on our part. This state of mind frees us, promoting an opening for more good to prosper in us and in our lives. Self-expression, capital S, is our inner power and is essential for the experience of personal freedom. We look inward as though looking through a glass clearly. This emphasizes the mental idea of a direct, unobstructed perception, which is possible as we mentally remove all misconceptions and external distractions from our own mind, thereby securing clarity. Using a clear mind and an open heart, just as clearly as we can see through glass, we see through all perceptions to the reality of our truest life. Wayne Dyer wrote these words in The Power of Intention, learning to co-create your world your way. We must raise ourselves to the level of energy where we are the light we seek, where we are the happiness we desire, where we are the love we feel is missing, where we are the unlimited abundance we crave. By being it, we attract it to us. For our releasing ceremony this year, we're going to do it a little differently. We're going to come forward and write our words of release in the sand. Now, I've already written limitations because I'm going to make the pecans from a totally different mindset next time. And I'm going to remember the lesson of the pecans as I jump into 2026. So I've written limitations, but no one could read it in there. And we know what happens with sand. The wind blows and it washes away, and the water comes up onto the sand and it washes it away because we no longer need it and we no longer want it. You can't really read limitations, and I wrote it so that, because David said, well, what about if people don't want people to see their word? Well, there are two things you can do. One, you can trust the process, that nobody can read it because it's not very legible in the sand. Or you can use the little knife over there to smooth it out yourself and rid it, if you so choose. But let us, you wanna light the candles?
Sure.
Let us think of what we're going to write in the sand, and it could be a symbol, it could be a word, your choice. But by not having that paper, we can't write. I remember some people would write and write and write on that little piece of paper. So we've got to make it real succinct.